Hi, it's Justine again. This is gonna be my end of the year book wrap up situation. So we're just gonna do worst books and best books. I did 0 book wrap ups this year because I'm not consistent. Cool. And also those don't get views. So none of you have heard of any of these books except for a couple if I did an individual review on them. But here we go. Okay. So we're gonna start with worst books because we're gonna save the best for last, and that's how that works. So the first worst book I read, and when I say first worst book, I don't mean first worst. I mean this is the least worst book that I will be talking about. Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay, that makes sense. Cool. So the least worst book that I will be speaking about in this video is Portrait of a Thief. So this book was really popular around, I think around springtime of this year, of last year, springtime of 2022. So a group of Chinese American college students go on a heist to steal Chinese art from Western museums. So the premise sounds very cool, right? So I was like, wow, I'm really gonna enjoy this book. I really didn't. I mean, okay, this is not at all an awful book, okay? It's not horrible, it's just not what I was expecting. So I had really high expectations, right? Because this was super popular and everybody was talking about it. And then I read it, and I think there were just a lot of issues with it. Mainly the characters, right? Because this is a very character-driven book. You know, we want to know the motivations of all these Chinese American students. And that's not good because this is a very character-driven story. I think there were 6 characters, yeah. And they were all basically the same person. The way they thought and the way they talked, they were all the same. They were all very serious, very wishy-washy. I didn't give a single shit about the romances that were going on. It was just so boring. It wasn't good, okay? There's honestly not that much to say about this. It was just did not meet my expectations. Was not for me. And the second least worst book I will be talking about in this video is Baby Teeth. A good video to watch if you're interested in why Baby Teeth is not good is, I think, Read with Cindy just put out 2 whole videos where she reads Baby Teeth, and it's some good stuff, okay? Take a look. Basically, the issues I had with it were the same that she did, kinda. Honestly, Baby Teeth was more enjoyable to read than Portrait of a Thief because it was just so ridiculous. I was having a good time. It was ridiculous and I was having a good time. It's okay, here's the summary. I probably should start with that. But it's about a mother, and she has an 7-year-old daughter, and her daughter is trying to kill her, actively trying to kill her. Yeah, that's the entire thing. And they're both kind of fighting for the dad's attention. But the dad's the dumbest character I've ever read. He's just so stupid. Also, he's Swedish. And it's very important that he's Swedish. And you're why? I don't know why. I really don't. It also wasn't very scary. I've been getting into reading some horror thriller books recently, and Baby Teeth is it was barely a thriller, it was barely a horror book. I was just I was not frightened for the mother. I was just all the characters are so dumb. There were so many ways to ward off this child. But honestly, it was a good time, so I don't hate it that much. It was just not, it was objectively bad, I feel in my opinion. Okay, the third least worst book that I will be talking about in this video, wow, good job, Justine, is The Friend Scheme. This is by Cale Dietrich. I've read one of his books before. I read The Love Interest. And I'd say The Love Interest was significantly better than this, though still not amazing. So The Friend Scheme is about these 2 mafia families, and they're oh, you need to go befriend this dude. I don't know, it's just a mafia family gay romance situation. And I was oh, that sounds fun and self-indulgent. It was not. It kind of wasn't. First of all, I read this fairly quickly just because it's kind of a short book, and I feel like that's kind of to its detriment because I feel like there's more stuff to do. Like, both the characters were so bad. Like, they were just so incredibly boring. They had like zero personality outside the things that they liked. Like, every time the two characters connected, it'd be like, oh, I like video games. Wow, we're soulmates. You know, like, I feel like there's more to one's personality outside of just their hobbies. So the two main characters have like no chemistry. Every time they're together, they have like very awkward conversation and then they start making out and that's fine. But I'm like, I feel like you guys aren't actually into each other, you're just horny. The word cute is used like way too often in this book. Like the main dude describes the love interest as like cute, like at least every other page, and you're like, okay, we get it, he's cute. It just seemed like one of those books where like Cal Dietrich's agent was like, you gotta put out a book like now, like do it now. And he sat down and he wrote this in a night and then he put it up. Yeah, also the action was poorly written. But yeah. The fourth worst, the second worst book I'm going to talk about in this video. The second worst book I've read this year. Yes, that's how I should be introducing them, you freaking dumbass. Okay, was Call Me By Your Name. So everyone probably knows about this book, but it's that movie with Timothée Chalamet and Armie Hammer, right? So I was on vacation like just a couple days ago, actually, and I didn't bring any books, I just had my Kindle. So I was like, oh shoot, I didn't download like any freaking books and I don't know how, so I'm just gonna go on Kindle Unlimited and see what's on there. So I was on Kindle Unlimited and I was scrolling and I was like, oh, Call Me By Your Name. I like that movie, I think. Like, honestly, I don't think I've ever watched the movie in whole. I've just seen like a lot of clips of it and I feel like I kind of get the vibes, right? So you're like, okay, I mean, that was a pretty good movie. I mean, it was kind of weird, I guess, but like it seemed to be pretty good. Like the story seemed fine. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll read the book, see what inspired the movie. You know, maybe the book will be better than the movie because the books are always better than the movie, right? Oh my god. This book was heinous. This book was so bad. And I'm so confused because everybody was like, oh, what a beautiful description of what young love is like. And I'm like, me as a young person, like, it's not, right? It's not like that, right? It's not? I don't know. Okay, I don't want to read any excerpts from this book because I don't want to subject you to that sort of thing coming out of my mouth. And it's not because it's sexual, it's because it's just nasty. It's like, there were times in this book where I recoiled in disgust, and everyone's like, oh, because the peach scene, right? Yeah, because of the peach scene. But also, there was... I'm on a laptop right now. Hold up, I need to search this up. Okay, I wasn't hallucinating. I'm sorry, I just had to make sure I wasn't like hallucinating this shit. Okay, so, okay. If you don't know what happens to Call Me By Your Name, which, you know, why don't you? But I'll explain to you. Basically, Elio is a 17-year-old boy in his Italian villa, and his dad's like a scientist man. He's a professor dude. So he lets a lot of like young professionals stay at their villa for a sec to do research, right? For like 6 weeks period of time. Blah. So basically Oliver, he's this hot American dude and he's like 24. And he shows up and Elio's like immediately kind of into him. He's just so like, he's so entrancing. And they start a romance and that's kind of it. That's kind of all you gotta know. So there were, like, I know a lot of people thought the movie was creepy, and it's not, let me be clear, it's only like 10% because of the age gap, okay? It's only creepy slightly, not like creepy, it's only nasty for like 10% of the nastiness is the age gap. 90% of the nastiness is some other shit, like literal shit. Like, guys, I'm not gonna read this to you because because of my dignity, and I can't do that, but there is a scene in this book that was not in the movie, thank God. So Oliver takes Elio to Rome for a trip. So they go to Rome, and they are in Rome. And they are in their hotel room in Rome. I'm like beginning to sweat. And am I really gonna say this in speak? Okay. They are in Rome. They are in their hotel room in Rome. They go to the bathroom together. They are intimate. They are in a relationship right now, so that is fine. They go to the bathroom together. Oliver goes to the bathroom. Elio tells him not to. Elio tells Oliver not to flush because he wants to look. He looks, then he takes a shit. He sits down, he's about to take a shit, and he's like, Oliver, I want you to look. And Oliver's like, I'll do one better. And he massages Elio's stomach, while he shits. So he's helping him take a shit. And that's heinous. Like, when I read that scene, I forced myself to read this scene like 3 times over, because I was like, no way, right? So I kept rereading it. I was like, oh my God. This is real, guys. I just Googled it. I was not hallucinating. Like, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever read in a book. And I read a book about a serial killer cannibal this year and enjoyed it, okay? So it's not, that's disgusting. That's heinous. That's so nasty. Why would I ever want to read that? And what the hell? Okay? What the actual fuck? Why would he do that? And also the peach scene, which was also not fun to read, you know what I mean? Like, I always thought that people were like overreacting with the peach scene. I'm like, it's just the peach. It's not fun to read. Okay, but like, there's like a weird foot fetish thing going on. Just things that I had to read, like, no one should have to read these things. No one should have to read them. I was appalled. So you might be wondering, Justine, why'd you finish this book? Okay, well, it wasn't so bad like the first half, right? The first half I was like, oh, this kind of like weird and kind of wishy-washy, but like I'll keep going with it. Maybe it'll be better once they get into a relationship. No, it was not. Honestly, should I have put it down? Yeah, but I'm very persistent. Okay, yeah, that happened. I read that. That's in my head right now. Also, the word tummy is the least sexy word that exists in the English vocabulary. Why was the word tummy used like 20 times in this book? Like, way too many times. You can say stomach. Don't say tummy. Okay, that's like the least of the crimes. This is the most acceptable of the crimes in this book. So you might be like, okay, Justine, so why isn't this the worst book you read this year? Well, because the worst book is worse, obviously, and also because the writing was genuinely kind of beautiful. When you're just in Elio's head, the writing is pretty good. It's like pretty poetic, you know what I mean? And I can respect that, and I did kind of have a good time. Like, it's too iconic to be, you know, the worst book this year. And also I did kind of like the ending. So it gives you the ending that the movie didn't really give you, where Elio visits Oliver in the US where he's teaching, and he's like, hey, and then they kind of like have a moment together to like basically recall what the hell happened that summer, and they're like, wow, you know, we have a connection now, and maybe it wasn't forever, but we're glad it happened. And I thought that was pretty cool. I liked it. Yeah. God, this book. Okay, so Justine, what was the worst book you read this year? Well, it was Lightlark. Okay, it was Lightlark. I know I just made the video, guys. Like, go watch my Lightlark video. Okay, but Lightlark was worse than Call Me by Your Name in the way that like I've never had to work so hard to get through a book like that. I mean, yeah, I've had to. Okay, that's not true. Like nonfiction, basically any like nonfiction science book, I have to like drag myself through. Maybe more than I had to drag myself with Lightlark. But this is like a fantasy YA. They're supposed to be easy and self-indulgent, and the way I was in the absolute trenches, I was fighting for my life. I was physically like dragging myself along the floor to finish this book. Okay? So I just don't think it has the right to be like that when it's not a good book whatsoever. The characterization was awful. It was just so cringy to read. The world building was weak and also cringy and just so stupid, and it needed an editor. And yeah. I'm not going to talk much about it because I already have an entire like super long video out about it. So go watch that instead of listening to me right now. So those were all the worst books of the year. And honestly, they weren't that bad. Besides like maybe like the last two, honestly, the first three weren't like they weren't heinously awful, you know what I mean? Like they're not like, oh my god, I don't know how this got published. You know what I mean? Like it's not, it honestly was a pretty good reading year. Let's detox. What were the best books I read this year? So we're gonna start with like fifth best going to best. Yeah, that's what I meant when I was saying those weird, yeah. Fifth best. Okay. Proxy. Proxy is a dystopian YA novel about, and it's pretty complex, so I probably should have written this down, but it's basically like there are two like sects of society, sects of society. There's like the rich people and the poor people, right? Which like, you know where this is going. This is obviously, it's like an incredibly good allegory for like classism, I guess. So basically like all the rich people use the poor people to like as proxies. So when like a rich person does something wrong, like maybe the rich person like gets into a car accident, like causes a car accident, then the poor person, their proxy, has to like take the punishment. So they go to jail or like, I don't know, for them, basically. Which is like, I don't know, I thought it was pretty creative. I thought it was cool. It wasn't cool, but like it was well done. This is like probably the best dystopian world I've ever read. And I've read a lot of dystopia in my time. I mean, not a lot recently, but like in middle school, obviously I was part of like the Hunger Games, Divergent, Selection situation going on. I was doing that stuff, and this is the best I've ever read. Like just the description of like the people in this world, it's just so like, you know, like I can seriously believe this being the future. You know what I mean? Like things that we use right now are called retro. And I think that's super, like someone's wearing sunglasses, and I assume in the future you don't need to wear sunglasses, but like he was wearing one of those like retro sunglasses things, and I'm like, those retro sunglasses, and I just thought that was like, I don't know, like I just like the attention to detail. It makes me really happy. The names that they pick, I think a lot of the time in dystopias especially, they can pick like really stupid names for people. America's Singer. But like this one, I thought all the names were well chosen, and all the names of the proxies, like the lower class citizens, they're all like, they I guess they, if you're like you don't have a name, they like assign you a name or something. I don't know, like all their names are the names of like characters from classical novels, like classical literature. So our our main dude is Sidney Carton, like from that one book, is it like The Whipping Boy or something? I just thought that was very cool. I liked it. They do this really, really good thing. Okay, so I kind of picked this up because I thought it would be like another gay romance. I'm sorry, I read a lot of those, but it's really not a romance at all, and I was not disappointed like whatsoever. You know what I mean? But I think they're like the main two guys, right? They're the main two guys, and I was worried that, you know, our girl character, because, you know, they got the classic trio, they got the two guys and the girl, but this time, like, the two guys are, like, vaguely romantically involved, and I'm like, what's gonna happen to the girl? Like, I don't like, a lot of the time in a lot of gay romances, they're really bad at making, like, the girl best friend character important or well written, but this one, like, the girl's, like, maybe my favorite character. I forgot what her name was, that's bad, but they call her a cause girl, and basically when she's like an activist, she's like a rich person who is like standing up for the rights of the underclassmen, and but I think it was like an incredibly good analogy for a lot of like activist people these days who aren't really doing what they think they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get too political, but I just thought it was well done. It was just so well done, and I really, really liked her character. I just like every character in this book. It was so good, and it like subverts the bad boy trope, because when we're first introduced to like the rich dude, Knox, right? There are three characters: the girl, Knox, the rich dude, the poor dude, right? So when we're first introduced to Knox, he's kind of introduced like the stereotypical bad boy. He's like driving fast in his car. He gets a lot of girls. And you're like, oh, okay, so he's the bad boy character. But I feel like they do such a good job of subverting the bad boy trope. Like Knox, he turns out to be like the wimpiest character in this entire book. But then at the end, he really like gets some good development. But I don't know. I just think they did so good. Like, oh, Mary, that's the girl's name. Yeah. I don't know. And they do like a really complex thing where like it isn't like a straightforward romance. It's almost like their relationship is so complex and close that it like borders on romance. I don't know. It's like everyone has a thing going on with everyone, and it's just crazy, and I love it. I love it so much. Like this is how you do dystopia. Proxy? Yeah. I haven't read the sequel yet. Okay, I'm getting on that, but like, okay, the only reason that this isn't, like, higher up on my best books list is because the POVs are really weird, and I was so disappointed because this could have been an amazing, 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 amazing book, but, like, the POVs were so screwed up. Like, in the beginning, they have POVs for Knox and Sid, right? So you're like, okay, I see where you're going, but then they meet up, and the POVs get, like, literally mixed around. Like, you think you're reading Sid's POV, but then they say something that only Knox would know. So I'm like, I don't know how that happened, but I wish it didn't, because this book could have been perfect. It could have been perfect. The next best book I read this year was A Certain Hunger. This is the serial killer cannibal book I was talking about earlier. And it was good. What can I say? It was insanely good. So, funny story with this book. I was like, in the beginning of the school year, so around like August, September, I really wanted to read this book. Like, I saw it on Goodreads, I was like, damn, I gotta have this book. And I also saw Tender is the Flesh at the like same time, so I was like, okay, I want to read these two books really bad. Like, I also had a few other books that I wanted to read, so our public library was closed down at the time, so I only had like our school library to go by, which had like way less books, but like sometimes if you give them like book recommendations, they'll get the books to you. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll just give them that. So I gave them like 5 book recommendations, and 2 of them were A Certain Hunger and Tender is the Flesh. And if you know Tender is the Flesh, it's a dystopia where everyone's a cannibal, and A Certain Hunger is my serial killer cannibalism book. So, I mean, I didn't think about it at the time, but now that I think about it, like, yeah, that didn't look too good. So I like put those all in. And then one day I was like, okay, where the hell are my books? Like, they just never came. And the librarian pulled me aside, and she was like, we know each other, kind of, like, and she knows me as, like, a romance reader. I do read a lot of romance, but, like, I'm dipping my toe in the cannibalism waters. And she was like, are you doing okay? Like she was like concerned for me, which like understandable, but like I'm fine. It's a coincidence. But that didn't look great. She never got me those books, but it's fine. The public library opened up and they had a certain hunger, so I could get that. So, but I haven't read Tenders to Flesh, and I don't know if I want to anymore because maybe I'm on Cannibal Out. Oh, don't say that. Okay, so Certain Hunger is about a serial killer cannibal, and she's a food critic by day, serial killer cannibal by night. And I was like, wow, like that's a story. And it's like a fake memoir, so it's written from her POV. Like this is her memoir she's writing, but she's fictional. So, yeah, you're like, Justine, why'd you enjoy this book so much? Okay, well, I just thought it was incredibly unique. Like, I personally haven't read a book like this, but I just don't read too many thrillers, I guess. Like, I'm getting into it, but I'm not like super in there yet. But I thought it was just incredibly fun, and it was disgusting, but not in the disgusting, like, Call Me By Your Name disgusting, but it was like, ooh, like gleeful disgust, you know what I mean? And like throughout the entire book, the author is constantly like, there are little bits in the book where the author's like, why are you reading this book? You know, it felt like so, like, it was like she was looking at me and she was like, you dumbass, you're sitting on your freaking ass right now reading this serial killer cannibalism book and you think you're a good person. And I was like, like, I don't know, I just really love that. Like, oh my god, like now I feel like I have to explain myself. Like, it was a good book. It was a really good book. Okay? It's fine. You'd read it too. I guess it has like some meta commentary about like the true crime people and like how can they sit there and read these awful things happening and like it, you know what I mean? Like it has some of that in there. I feel like that's not the entire point of the story, but like I feel like the entire point of the story is to entertain, you know what I mean? And it also asks you things like, it has some amazing quotes. I feel like this is like the quote, you know what I mean? Okay. You feel morally superior even as you identify with me. You slip into the supple skin of a cannibal for nearly 300 pages and enjoy it. Then you can slough off, go about your happy moral business, and feel like you are a better person. Did you feel that? I felt that, like, hands were on my freaking throat. Like, oh my god! And I feel like this book also gets you to question, like, if you could be a serial killer cannibal. Like, I don't know, it makes you, it's like in your head, like, okay, like, here's a quote. In sum, you and I are the same. You may not admit it out loud, but I know you will read this book and wonder how your lover would taste sauteed with shallots and mushrooms and deglazed with a little red wine. You read and you wonder, and you know the answer would be delicious. Like, do you feel that? I don't know. Oh my god. Okay, like this, it just gives me chills. Like this is a good book. I just think the entire premise of this book, it's too good to be bad. You know what I mean? But I feel like a lot of people on Goodreads kind of got the wrong idea about it. Like, I got the wrong idea about it too. Like, I know I was, like, my friends, they were like, why are you reading this serial killer cannibal book? And I was like, don't worry guys, it's about feminism. Because if you go to Goodreads and you check a lot of the reviews, a lot of them are like, slay, girl boss, I support women's rights, but more importantly, I support women's wrongs. And you're like, okay, girl boss, like maybe she's like a serial killer cannibal who was wronged in the past and now she's taking revenge. She's like not really a girl boss. Like, I don't think this book is about feminism whatsoever. Like, it's not really relevant to me that she's a woman. Like, it's slightly relevant because honestly, that's the way she got away with a lot of it, because they're like, oh, she's just like a hot girl, you know what I mean? And that's why men trust her, and that's why nobody could get her for so long. But I honestly don't think it's about like feminism or her being a woman at all. It's about serial killer cannibals. And why can't it be about that? You know what I mean? Okay, yeah, so that's the fourth best book I read this. People are gonna think you're insane. Third best book I read this year, If We Were Villains. Okay, so it's pretty popular, I think. Like, If We Were Villains has been on my TBR for like how many, probably like 2 years now. I don't know, it's pretty popular like a bit ago. I don't know, but I never really got around to reading it. I just kind of forgot about it. But then when I was on vacation again and I could only be on Kindle Unlimited, it's on Kindle Unlimited. So I was like, okay, I'll read it. And wow, it was way better than I thought it would be. Honestly, I thought it'd be kind of like too serious for me and that it'd be like boring and the writing would be pretentious. And the writing was pretentious, but it wasn't like bad pretentious. You know what I mean? I also think it's pretty miraculous that I found my second worst and my second best book of the year on Kindle Unlimited. Thank you, Kindle. If We Were Villains follows a group of theater kids, and they're at a very good art school doing theater, but not like theater kid theater, you know what I mean? Like I call them theater kids, but they're like Shakespeare theater kids. So they're a little bit different. They're built a little bit different. But I'll call them theater kids because I think it's funny. But it's basically about like their obsession with their craft and their complex relationships with each other. And basically a murder occurs during the time that they're there, and it's like a mystery question mark, but it's more like a character study in my opinion. And it's just really good. I feel like each character was made so important that I feel like as soon as this book started and they introduced me to 6 whole characters like within 1 page, I was like, whoa, like I'm scared because it's very difficult to pull off having 6 characters and trying to make them all important. You know what I mean? Wait, 6? No, they introduced 7 characters to you. Yeah, and all of them are important. And I'm like, it's just insane how that was pulled off. Like, I feel like every character had a role to play. You could feel that the author cared almost equally about every single character, and it just makes me happy when that happens. Yes, the writing was slightly pretentious. These people quote Shakespeare like every other line, but it worked my brain, and I think that's good. There's like these people are just so dramatic, and it's so entertaining. Like I guess because they're theater kids, but like every emotion they feel is like amped up to like 10, and I'm like so for it. You know what I mean? It's just dramatic, it's angsty, it's all the things. I just really enjoy it, and I feel like don't go into this expecting a mystery, because honestly, like as soon as the thing happens, you can pretty much guess who did it. Like it's slightly obvious, and I think that's kind of the point. It's more like the build up, the drama, the tension. It's so incredibly well written. Second best book I read this year. Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. Ooh, okay. So this book follows main girl, and she's like, I think like late 20s, mid 20s, and she's very depressed. She has a great fear of death, and she kind of just thinks the world's like kind of an awful place, and she's like kind of shocked by how easy it is to die, and which like relatable. I feel like everyone's thought about that. I don't know, but this is like amped up to 100. Like she's one of like those messy, she's messy, yeah. She's like a very passive character, so she basically accidentally stumbles into a job as a secretary at this church, which is kind of weird because she's like an atheist lesbian, and this is like a church for old people, so they're like, it's like kind of an iffy situation, but that's not like the thing. And she's replacing this woman. The woman who used to be the secretary died, and so she's like facing this fear through that, I guess, and she's in contact with this woman's friend who doesn't know she's dead yet. So she's contacting her via like the church secretary email, and she's just emailing back and forth with this person because she doesn't have the guts to tell her that her friend is dead. And like, wow, is that a premise? You know what I mean? I kind of thought that this book would be too depressing for me, and I feel like for some people it actually could be. Like, if you are very depressed, do not read this book. I feel like, especially the beginning, not like the beginning, but like the first half of this book it's very depressing, I guess, and it's very mundane. It really makes you feel like kind of dissociated from life, you know? Like, a lot of people complain that this book is boring because for a lot of the book, she's just doing normal things in a weird way. But I feel like that's kind of the point, you know? And the writing in this book is also beautiful. I don't really have any excerpts from it, but I feel like every other line of this book could be in one of like those deep Pinterest thingamabobbers. You know what I mean? It's just like, this is a book. This is definitely a book. And everyone's like, okay, is this gonna make me depressed? And I don't think it will. Okay, I was worried too. Like, halfway point, I was like, am I gonna be depressed? Like, that's not what I was thinking. But like, is this book gonna make me so sad I'm depressed? No. This book is weirdly hopeful. I feel like if someone was like, what are the vibes of this book? This is a hopeful book. And I think that it's just very beautiful. This is a very good book. And the best book I read this year, honestly, this is kind of subjective. I feel like maybe top 3 could be flipped around a lot, but Brother's Keeper. It's about an older sister who has to take her and her little brother across the border from North to South Korea during the Korean War. And like, I feel like if you're an older sister in any capacity, or even like an older sibling in any capacity, this is like gonna get you. You know what I mean? It's just, it's sad. It's incredibly sad. I read this in school because I'm a bad student, and in art class, I was sitting there and I was reading like near the end and like tears. Like, I was crying tears. It was not cute. I blew my nose started bleeding, I was still crying, I was a mess. This book, it's gonna kill you. It's gonna kill you. And it's good. It's good that, okay, like, people like to cry when they read books, right? Like, I'm a crier. I enjoy crying. God, what am I, like, it's therapeutic for me. I enjoy feeling emotions when I read books. I love it when books make me cry because that means that I felt the emotions. And I think that's good. Feeling emotions is a good thing. Where was I going with this? But I think some people, at least some people I know, are like, why would you want to cry? You know what I mean? But like, people want to cry, right? Like, this isn't weird. What am I talking about? Like, this, like, probably top 3 saddest books I've ever read in my life. And the writing, it's action-packed, but it's like emotion-packed. Like, you're feeling emotion. And like the entire, you're scared, you're feeling all the, it's just so good. And it really, like, I feel like there aren't very many books about the Korean War. So I really like that it was about that. And it's just like, it's just so good. Like, this is an insanely good book. I feel like I said that phrase so many times already, but like, this is, if you want to cry, read this book, because you're gonna cry. The way it portrays like grief it's just like I've had the privilege of not really losing anyone like super important in my life, so I'm not like the super target audience, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a professional in what grief looks like, but like, the way it was written, it's just beautiful. It's like, this is a book. Yeah. Okay, so that's the end. Those were the worst and best books I read this month. Side note, I keep a spreadsheet, a book spreadsheet, if you'd be interested in me making a little video about how I organize my book spreadsheet and how I do my graphs and my pie charts and all that stuff. Let me know, because I want to make that video, but I'm like, what if literally nobody gives a shit? But this is how I keep like all my books organized, you know what I mean? And I think not even if you make book content, just if you're a reader in general, I think everyone should keep their books organized, because I kind of regret not doing it like earlier. Because now I'm like, oh, what, did I read this book? What were my thoughts about this book? I can't remember anymore. And it makes me upset. So everyone should keep their books organized, and let me know if you want like my book spreadsheet template. Yeah. Cool. thank you for coming with me on this journey. This video is probably gonna come out a little bit late. I'm already filming this in 2023, so honestly, it was a really, really good year for books for me. I didn't read as many as last year. Last year, my book count was 80. This year, my book count is 53. I just like didn't read any books over the summer, so like that's why. But yeah, amazing year for reading. I honestly had like a really hard time picking my top 5 best books. Like worst books, it wasn't that hard. I was just like, yeah, I didn't like these. These were like the only books that I could say that I like didn't enjoy. But like best books, like I was fighting. I was out here fighting. Like even on my Google Doc here, I still have like a couple more, but I might address these later. I don't know. Maybe we'll give an honorable mention. Brave Face, woo, by Sean Hutchinson. So Sean Hutchinson is like a really prominent writer of YA gay romance, and that's a genre that I read a lot, so like I know this man, you know what I mean? And I feel like I was not aware he had a memoir. I just found it in the library and I was like, what? And I took it home and I was like, okay, quick little memoir read. I didn't really read that many memoirs, but this is the best memoir I probably read in my entire life. And yes, I did read I'm Glad My Mom Died. So Brave Face, it's just about his teenage years and how he was depressed. And he even says in the blurb, he wasn't depressed because he was gay. He was depressed and also gay. This is really funny, but it's really sad. You know what I mean? Like, okay, trigger warning for a suicide attempt, because that does happen in there. And it was sad. And I cried, but I also laughed. I was crying and laughing, and very few books do that to me. But, like, that's how you write a memoir. Like, wow. The only reason I didn't put that in, like, my top 5 was just because I feel like memoirs aren't for me. I don't like how you can't make shit up, and I'm like, this storyline isn't linear. It's like, of course not. It's a freaking memoir, you dumbass. Yeah. Okay, cool. So those are all the books I read this year. Thank you for accompanying me on my book journey. I really appreciate the 47 well, it's more like 43. It's more like 2. Well, if you've ever watched my videos, I appreciate you. And I know I'm not a very prominent channel right now, but I do this mostly for me. And honestly, it doesn't even matter to me if no one watches my videos. I feel like I'd still make them. Thank you. If you want more content like this, subscribe, like. If you didn't like this video, leave a hate comment, but as long as you leave a comment, just give me some interaction, guys. Cool. Thank you. Bye.